Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads, and welcome to a rather unplanned Women's History Month edition. And this one is on the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. Last week I did the Women's Prize for Fiction. I had no intention of doing this video, but I've got 4 days off, the weekend, and then I took 2 work days. And so my goal this week is to have a no news weekend. And so instead of getting up, looking at the news and feeling dread and doom, I got up, grabbed some coffee, and watched YouTube videos. And the danger in that is that here we are with a book haul that I had not planned to do. Now, the first book that I'm going to talk about is not on the Women's Prize for Nonfiction long list. This is one that the YouTuber mentioned, and I bought it because it's timely. So last week, I will probably butcher his name, or former President Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines was arrested and sent to The Hague to be tried for crimes against humanity. And when she mentioned this book, she kind of messed the name up, but I was able to find it. It is Some People Need Killing, a memoir of murder in my country by Patricia Evangelista. And I knew, because of the timeliness of this story, and the book really, this was published in copyright 2023. This is a 2025 paperback edition. But I had to get it, and it was available at my local Barnes & Noble for pickup. Some People Need Killing is journalist Patricia Evangelista's, here we go again, slow down, Lee, Evangelista's meticulously reported and deeply human chronicle of the Philippines drug war. For 6 years, Evangelista documented killings carried out by police and vigilantes in the name of then-President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs, a crusade that led to the slaughter of thousands. Immersing herself in the world of killers and survivors, and capturing the atmosphere of terror created when an elected president decides that some lives are worth less than others. This book takes its title from the words of a vigilante, which demonstrated the psychological accommodation many across the country had made. "I'm really not a bad guy," he said. "I'm not all bad. Some people need killing." That echoes something I heard probably 6 months ago someone say somewhere. Anyway, I'm not sure when I will get to this, but I definitely wanted to grab a copy of this since it was available. And again, timely. We'll see how his trial plays out. Okay, so from here on, we are into the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm not sure how many, I looked at it, don't remember how many titles are on this, but these next 4, 3 of them I bought this morning. 1 of them I bought last week because it's been on my wish list for a while. You guys know, if you watch my channel, I am really into World War II, World War I, and particularly women in war. And on the ad for this video, I talk about some things I'd heard people say recently about women are too emotional, and women shouldn't be in combat, women shouldn't be in positions of power. What I'm talking about is Agent Zoe, the untold story of a fearless World War II resistance fighter by Claire Mully. So I bought this because the World War II connection and the women in war connection, because it just goes to show that we are underestimated more often than not. During the Second World War, Elżbieta Zawaka, the courageous resistance fighter known as Zoe, was the only woman to cross almost 1,000 miles of Nazi-occupied territory to reach Britain as an emissary of the Polish Home Army Command. After completing her London missions, she became the only woman to parachute behind enemy lines in Poland. As the only female member of the Polish elite special forces, the Silent Unseen. There, while being hunted by the Gestapo, who arrested her entire family, She took a key role in the largest act of organized resistance during the war, the Warsaw Uprising. In 1945, Zoe was discharged as one of the most highly decorated Polish women in history. Yet the Soviet-backed post-war communist regime not only imprisoned her, but also ensured that her remarkable story remained hidden. Now, through new archival research and exclusive interviews with women who knew and fought alongside Zoe, Claire Mully brings this forgotten heroine brilliantly back to life. I look forward to reading this soon. Looks like this is also going to highlight the lives of other women and men in the resistance and help me to learn a little bit about history that I don't know. I've got smudges on these glasses. Okay, so Agent Zoe is on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm looking forward to seeing which of these books actually make the short list. I hope that several of them do. Next up, I guess we've got a theme going on here, at least in the first 3 books. Next up is Anne Applebaum's Autocracy, Inc. I thought about buying her book Gulag, which was also available at Barnes & Noble, but it's 700 some odd pages long, and I was like, no. I've got too many books to buy something that's kind of outside of my area of preferred learning. We think we know what an autocratic state looks like. There is an all-powerful leader at the top. He controls the police. The police threaten the people with violence. There are evil collaborators and maybe some brave dissidents. But in the 21st century, that image bears little resemblance to reality. Nowadays, autocracies are underpinned by sophisticated networks composed across multiple regimes, from China to Russia to Iran. They pose a threat not just to their own citizens, but to democracies all over the world. In Autocracy, Inc., acclaimed journalist Anne Applebaum exposes a new danger that requires an urgent response. Today's autocracies, she shows, are supported by a web of kleptocratic financial structures, surveillance technologies, and professional propagandists who operate beyond their own borders. Corrupt companies in one country do business with corrupt companies in another. The police in one country can arm and train the police in another. The autocrats are rewriting the rules of world trade and governance as their propagandists pound home the same messages about the weakness of democracy and the evil of America. The members of Autocracy, Inc. aren't linked by a unifying ideology, but rather by a common desire for power, wealth, and impunity, and by their belief that democratic ideas, whether they come from their own internal opposition or from the democratic world, are dangerous and must be destroyed. If democracies are to survive, Anne Applebaum argues, we must reframe our worldview and learn how to fight back. Interesting. And this is a very short book, less than 200 pages, so I may get to this sooner rather than later. So we're leaving autocracy and dictatorships and fascist regimes-ish aside a bit, and we're going to Private Revolutions. 4 women face China's new social order. So there still is kind of a dictator involved by Yuan Yang? I'm not sure. But I found this very intriguing because this is about women and a people that I don't know anything about. We all, if you watch the news, see China, the country, as a bad place with bad people. But let's see what this book tells us. While serving as the deputy Beijing bureau chief of the Financial Times, British-Chinese journalist Yuan Yang began to notice common threads in the lives of her Chinese peers, women born during China's turn toward capitalism in the 1980s and 1990s, who, despite the country's enormous economic gains during their lifetimes, were coming up against deeply entrenched barriers as they sought to achieve financial stability. The product of 7 years of intimate, in-depth reporting, this transporting and indelible book traces the journey of 4 such women as they try to make better lives for themselves and their families in the new Chinese economy. June and Siyu are among the few in their villages to graduate high school. Each makes her way to Beijing, June as a young professional and Siyu as an entrepreneur. Like Siyu, Laya lives with her grandparents in their village while her parents send money home. Yearning for a different life from those of the women she sees around her, Laya soon joins her parents in Shenzhen as an underage factory worker. Born to an urban middle-class family, Sam is outraged when her eyes are opened to the poor treatment of workers and becomes a labor activist, increasingly targeted by authorities. As the women grapple with government policies that threaten their businesses, their children's access to education, their choices of where to make a home, and in Sam's case, their lives, a vivid, damning, and urgent picture emerges of the previously unseen human cost of China's rising economic tide and the courage and perseverance of those caught in the swell. So I was intrigued by this, and as I was driving home from the bookstore, I thought about, this is something that I am not familiar with, as opposed to World War II, which I've read a lot about, and how even now we seek to dehumanize people as entire groups, as savages or communist or Marxist or just vermin. And yet we know so little about how the average people of that place or that tribe or community live. So I'm really looking forward to this, even though it's kind of outside my genre. Finally, the final book that I bought today that's on the 2025 Women's Prize for Nonfiction long list is By the Fire We Carry, The Generations Long Fight for Justice on Native Land by Rebecca Nagel. I'm going to be honest here. Maybe next week I may share the book haul that went along with this, because I ordered these online for pickup in store, and then I went to the store and I found out it was triple points for premium members, and I lost control. So I bought more books, but they are not on the Women's Prize for Nonfiction long list. But one of them is also, I think, similar in theme to this, only fiction. Before 2020, American Indian reservations made up roughly 55 million acres of land in the United States. By contrast, nearly 200 million acres are reserved for national forests. In the emergence of this great nation, our government set aside more land for trees than for indigenous peoples. In the 1830s, Muskogee people were rounded up by the U.S. military at gunpoint and forced into exile halfway across the continent. At the time, they were promised this new land would be theirs for as long as the grass grew and the waters ran. But that promise was not kept. Surprise, surprise. When Oklahoma was created on top of Muskogee land, the new state claimed their reservation no longer existed. Over a century later, a Muskogee citizen was sentenced to death for murdering another Muskogee citizen on tribal land. His defense attorneys argued that the murder occurred on the reservation of his tribe, and therefore Oklahoma didn't have the jurisdiction to execute him. Oklahoma asserted that the reservation no longer existed. In the summer of 2020, and I was not tracking this, there was a lot going on that summer, the Supreme Court settled the dispute. Its ruling would ultimately underpin multiple reservations covering almost half the land in Oklahoma, including the author's own Cherokee Nation. Interesting. Very interesting. I definitely look forward to reading this. Totally. Can't wait to read this. Anywho, and I did not know the outcome of that trial or the Supreme Court decision. Like I said, there was a lot going on in the summer of 2020 if you were paying attention, or even if you weren't. So, that is my unplanned book haul. This one was planned. I bought this one on purpose. But the rest of them are because I'm trying to have a no-news weekend, and watching BookTube means buying books. Also, triple points for Barnes & Noble Premium members and 2 for just regular B&N members. You can't beat that. Anywho, that is it for me. This should be, if I have my memory correct, this should air on Wednesday, and this should be my last video of the week. Yesterday, I think I did a book review, and then Monday will be my weekend books as usual. Will have been. What is time? Anywho, if you stuck with me for this long, I so appreciate you being here, and thank you, as always, for sticking with me on my journey, and happy reading.